Okay, hi guys and welcome to the show, and today we are reviewing the Marc Sons 300-meter professional automatic dive watch. This is the reference MSD-032 and it comes in this black and red Pepsi combination with a red minute hand. So first of all we'll get the specifications and dimensions out of the way. The case is made out of 316L stainless steel. We have a thickness of, I would say, 14 millimeters, a diameter of about 42.5 millimeters diameter. Lug to lug, we're looking at 50 millimeter lug to lug, so quite a large watch. And immediately you'll notice I've taken the bracelet off. I'll get this out of the way first. Let's just talk a little bit about the bracelet. I'm not too fond of the bracelet. I thought it was far too big and clunky. It's really heavy. I mean, it's quite well made, but I wasn't fond of this kind of, almost like a tank tread style links. It was just too heavy, too bulky. It does have solid end links. However, where they connect to the watch, it is flat rather than curved, which makes replacing the band, unless you add a mesh bracelet, makes replacing the band rather difficult. So it's a bit of a disappointment. The clasp, however, is pretty good. We have a fold over clasp, push button deployment, and it operates quite well. It does the job pretty well. It's of course signed Marc Sons, nicely machined. Not the most amazing. There is 3 options for micro adjustment, and there is a diver extension, which again leaves a lot to be desired. It's rather flimsy. Even though it's easy to deploy, it's not exactly the most high quality, but you know, I'm willing to forgive it because most of the time, I must be honest, I wear mine on a NATO strap. Now I don't have any 22mm NATO straps because I tend to have, most of my watches are 20mm with the exception of the SKX, so I just put it on this NATO, which I think the colour matches the black and red quite nicely. We have a 120 click bezel, which is definitely one of the watch's strong point. No play, it's very nicely done. The grip on the bezel is also quite nice. It's easy to use, and once off the bracelet it's even more accessible because where the bracelet meets the actual watch, you've got more area to grip. We have a screw down crown signed M&S, which unfortunately in the UK is a department store, but you know, to the rest of the world it doesn't really matter. We have a helium escape valve at the 10 o'clock, quite reminiscent of the Seamaster, and it operates quite well. In fact, I'd say the helium escape valve operates better than the screw down crown. The screw down crown is a little bit grainy. Right, let's talk about the dial. It's got superluminova. I'll just move the hands so we can see the dial a bit better. The dial is definitely one of its strong points. Has huge lume markings, also really widespread lume on the hands, which are done very, very well, I must admit. If we just go close in there, go nice and close up. We have a date at 3 o'clock, which is framed. Then it's signed Marc Sons at the top, and then a little bit of information at the bottom. This, of course, is a 300-meter diver, and professional automatic written underneath. The lume on this is very impressive, and understandably so with these wide markings. Let's just quickly make a transition now to the lume shot. Here's the lume shot. Now, as you can see, it's absolutely phenomenal. What I like about it is that it's clear, it's easy to decipher. You can easily make out where the 12 o'clock position is with double indices at the 12 o'clock. And the hands themselves are really thick and wide. My only slight issue is it might be difficult to decipher the minute from the hour hand. So right now it's a couple minutes past 5, and had you not known that, it might be a little bit difficult to tell because the thickness is slightly different. However, it works very, very well. The lume keeps its It's charged for quite a long time. It's easily comparable to the famous Seiko looms that are just absolutely fantastic. So anyway, the loom definitely is one of its strongest points. Okay, back to the studio. Okay, welcome back. Of course, we have scratch resistant sapphire glass on the front, which is done very, very well. The sapphire is indeed flat. It's pressure tested to 30 ATM, so it is indeed 300 meters water resistant, which is a decent amount at this price range. This obviously comes in a variety of colors. This is the Coke combination. There is a Pepsi version, there's an all black version, and they all have the matching hand to match the outer bezel color. So that's a nice touch. Loom at the pip at the top, and the bezel is done very, very nicely. In fact, I think it's my favorite feature, the markings, the quality of the bezel. It sits beautifully. Everything aligns very, very nicely. The quality, it is decent quality, I must admit. The case is completely brushed, finished. I prefer a polished case, but that's just personal taste. But if you like the brushed look, this has a strong kind of tool-like aesthetic. It's all about function. There's no messing about here. The total weight is about 205 grams, which I think is really on the heavy side. But if you want a hefty, larger watch, then this is certainly it. Have a quick look at the back. We have a screw down case back, just signed very, very simply. All brushed, of course. So the movement inside is a Miyota caliber 8215, which is a fully automatic movement. It is hand windable. It has an accuracy. It's not the most accurate of my watches, but it for its price range is fairly decent. It has a power reserve of 40 hours and operates at 21,600 beats per hour. It's a non-hacking movement, so it doesn't hack. However, you can wind it, which is pretty good. Now I've pulled the crown out, I'm adjusting the time. It's not hackable whatsoever. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons. First of all, I'll talk about what I don't like about the watch, and then I'll talk about what I do like about the watch. First of all, the finishing is not the best I've seen in the world. It does the job, however, it's very just plain. There isn't any kind of design flair except for in the shape itself. I'm not too fond of the movement, to be honest. I'm not the biggest fan. The movement is not too bad, however, when operating it here, it's a little flimsy, as we can see. Also, when you're setting the time, there's a kind of very grainy feel to it. You could definitely feel it's not the most refined. Screwing down the crown, it's a bit tricky to do. The thread is not the most refined again. However, it does do the job. Another thing I don't like is that if I just change the time, whenever the minute hand crosses the date, for about, I would say, almost a minute every hour, you cannot see the date. With the hour hand it's fine, but with the minute hand, from about, I would say, about 13.5 minutes to about 16 minutes, it's a bit difficult to read the date. So almost 2 minutes of every hour the date is non-legible, which is a bit bizarre. So we're trying to catch the thread and wind it back in. It's not the most easiest to do. Another thing I don't like is the end links of the bracelet, because they're square. They're just made specifically for this bracelet. Unless you put a mesh on it, just with a flat end to the bracelet, it's only compatible with this bracelet. On a NATO strap is absolutely fine. In fact, I think it's better with a NATO strap. Now, another thing I'm not particularly fond of is if we've lined the bezel up at 12 o'clock, you can see these grips do not line up. This is a real minor thing. I know I'm very fussy, but it would have been nice if it lined up. Also, I'm not fond of the bracelet itself at all. I think this There's no need for this line going down the center. I think it adds, if we're going to go for a minimal tool look, then you know, I would have just left this very plain. Also, the weight of it is extremely heavy. If you want a hefty watch, then it's absolutely fine, but for me, I found it uncomfortable. Also, the movement, the watch itself is obviously, I would presume, made in China. It doesn't have made in Germany or anything like that on the dial. In fact, it doesn't have made anywhere. So it's quite obvious that Marc & Sons are having their watches mass produced in China, but they're basing their operation in Germany, which is absolutely fine. If you can get over that kind of hump, if it's not a big deal for you, then it's absolutely fine. But for me, if I'm buying a German watch, I would have loved to see made in Germany, and I'll be willing to pay extra for that quality, for that authenticity, because let's be honest, the Germans, they pretty much started this whole horology thing. They were the first master clockmakers in the world before wristwatches. Their legacy in horology is to be respected. It's not what I was expecting, which I was expecting a kind of lower end equivalent to Zin, but this is far from it. But having said that, if you are comfortable with a Chinese produced brand from Germany, then that's absolutely fine, and the quality is acceptable for the price. Lastly, the name itself, Marc & Sons. It's the kind of name you would have seen a long time ago with pocket watches, with watchmakers, you know, carrying the tradition on with the family, the next generation. With something as modern as this, I'm not sure if that name works. Marc & Sons do dress watches that are very tastefully done, I must admit, but I'm not sure that the name works with this kind of watch. But again, this is my own opinion. So a bit of a mixed bag here. However, I think the dial is very nice. It reminds me a bit like the Seiko Monster. The lume is absolutely fantastic, and the bezel action is great. And the actual bezel insert is nice as well. They have got a lot right with this watch, but there are some things that I don't like about it. It feels like exactly what it is. It's an entry-level Chinese produced German watch that you know, if you wanted something cheap to go diving with, this is probably would do the job just fine. So let's have a quick wrist shot. Actually, on my small wrist with a NATO strap, it's really not that bad. If you were to go diving with it, it would be perfect. It would be really great because it's very legible and it's obviously robust. However, for me, it's just a little bit too big. I'd prefer to pay a little bit extra and get something with some extra refinement. However, if you're looking for a watch on a budget and you don't want the regular Seiko SKX or, you know, the run-of-the-mill entry-level pieces, then this is a really good alternative. If I was diving, not that I can with my dodgy lungs, but if I was diving, it certainly would be very functional, and I would put my trust in it. So at the end of the day, as a dive watch, it does do its job. So let's just summarize this watch now. So in summary, it's not a bad watch. For the money, you get a really usable, functional tool watch. And if you're willing to overlook the few negatives that it has, I think it will serve you well, and certainly is something durable that can take a beating. Okay guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll definitely catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.